Introducing the Gastro Notebook, where your culinary journey begins.
Welcome to the Gastro Notebook. Have you ever stopped and really truly looked at your dinner plate? Beyond just the food that's on it? Because hidden in there is an epic story, a 10,000-year history of invention, discovery, and culture. Today, we're going to unpack that entire journey, right from the very first campfire to the fork you might be holding right now.
And it all really comes down to this one single, fascinating question. How on earth did we go from a simple, crackling campfire to the world we live in now, with celebrity chefs, global food networks, and Michelin stars? The answer? Well, it's a journey that didn't just change what we eat, it completely reshaped who we are as a species.
And believe it or not, this entire sprawling history, it all hinges on one single, really powerful idea. And that idea is gastronomy. Now, what does that word actually mean? It sounds kind of fancy, I know, but it's about so much more than just being a foodie. When you strip it all down, gastronomy is simply the study of the relationship between our food and our culture. See, it's not just about the art of cooking. It's a mix of history, of sociology, and art all rolled into one. It's basically the story of us, of humanity, told through the lens of what we eat. So to really understand that story, we have to go back. Way back to the beginning, to the very first cooks and the very first farmers who completely changed the game for everyone. And it all kicks off with our ancestor Homo Erectus and the discovery, or maybe the taming, of fire. Now, this wasn't just about staying warm. This was the first great culinary revolution. Cooking food made it so much easier to digest, which meant we got more energy from it. It also killed off dangerous bacteria. In fact, a lot of scientists believe this huge boost in energy is exactly what fueled the massive growth of the human brain. Okay, so the next giant leap forward? The agricultural revolution. Just look at this timeline. What started in Mesopotamia about 10,000 years ago just spread like wildfire. In what is, historically speaking, a blink of an eye, we went from chasing our food to growing it ourselves. And that one change, well, it would redefine society forever. The consequences were absolutely staggering. For the first time ever, humans could build permanent settlements. With a steady supply of food, the population just exploded. And here's the crucial part. Not everyone had to be a farmer anymore. This led to social classes and all these new specialized jobs, including, you guessed it, the very first professional chefs who were hired to cook for the new ruling elite. So as these civilizations started to grow and become more complex, food became more than just fuel. It turned into a tool of culture, a powerful symbol of faith, and for sure an expression of imperial power. What's so cool here is that you can see all this culinary innovation happening at the same time all over the world. The Egyptians were giving us the first written recipes. The Greeks literally wrote the first cookbook. In China, they were perfecting advanced cooking with woks. Meanwhile, the Romans were writing down all their lavish feasting habits, and all the way across the ocean, the Aztecs were mastering chocolate, chilies, and corn. Incredible. And right alongside all of this, food became deeply connected to faith. All the major religions started to establish dietary laws, like kosher rules in Judaism, halal in Islam, or the fasting periods in Christianity. These rules weren't just about what you could or couldn't eat. They're about defining who you were, your cultural and spiritual identity. Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. This brings us to a more modern era, where two massive developments basically created the culinary world we recognize today: the invention of the restaurant and the rise of the professional chef. The stage for all this was set when Europeans arrived in the Americas. It sparked this massive worldwide exchange of ingredients. Think about it. Suddenly, Europe had potatoes, tomatoes, and corn. Can you even imagine Italian food without tomatoes? It's wild. In return, the Americas got new types of livestock and grains. It was basically the first true global fusion cuisine. And right in the middle of this changing world, one year stands out: 1765. This is the year that in Paris, the very first modern restaurant opened its doors. And it changed absolutely everything about how we eat in public. And the origin of the word itself is just brilliant. Restaurant comes from the French word restaurer, which means to restore. That's because the first restaurants sold these really rich soups and broths called restoratives. They were literally meant to restore your health and energy. This new way of dining out brought with it a whole new philosophy. The famous food writer Berlat-Savarin captured it perfectly back in 1825 with this quote: "Tell me what you eat, I will tell you what you are." Food was no longer just about your social class or your religion. It was becoming a way to express your personal identity.
So how did the chef become this public figure? Well, it kind of happened in 3 steps. First, the French Revolution kicked all these amazing chefs out of the royal and noble kitchens. With no one to cook for, they had to get creative. So step 2, they opened their own restaurants for the general public. And that led to step 3, the rise of people like Marie Antoinette Carême, the first real celebrity chef, who even designed the iconic chef's uniform we still see today.
But right as this amazing artisanal food culture was starting to bloom, a totally different revolution was sweeping the globe, the Industrial Revolution. And its impact on our food, well, it was massive, and honestly, pretty conflicted.
This slide really shows the dramatic shift. Food went from being natural, local, and tied to the seasons to being mass-produced, globalized, and processed. The focus shifted away from craftsmanship and toward industrial efficiency, and the result was a food system that was much, much more standardized.
And nothing shows this shift better than the rise of fast food. The whole industry really got its start from the need to feed soldiers efficiently during World War II, with things like powdered milk and dehydrated veggies. Those industrial techniques were perfected for the war, and then they were unleashed on the consumer market. The growth has been just explosive, from $6 billion in 1970 to over $240 billion today. Wow.
And that brings us right up to the present day, where the biggest conversations about food seem to be about this tension, this constant push and pull between science and nature, between efficiency and tradition.
I mean, today, we're grappling with technologies like genetically modified foods. On one hand, people say they hold a promise of creating crops that can resist drought and feed a growing planet. But on the other hand, you have some really tough questions being asked about corporations owning patents on life itself, the loss of biodiversity, and what the long-term impacts might be.
And then you've got things like hydroponics, which is basically the science of farming without any soil. It's an amazing innovation, right? You can grow food in cities, in any climate. But it also brings up a really deep philosophical food question. Can a tomato that's grown in nutrient water under an artificial light ever have that same complex, rich flavor, that terroir, as one grown in real, living soil?
And all of this leaves us with one final thought to chew on. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors took a wild grass and domesticated it, turning it into wheat and completely changing human history. So what are we domesticating now? Is it a gene? A single cell? A new algorithm? The 10,000-year story of what's on our plate is definitely far from over. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the Gastro Notebook. And if you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss, let's talk about it down in the comments. See you next time.